Welcome to Growing Pains, a podcast of the Sumner County Republican Freedom Caucus, where we explore the challenges of a thriving Sumner County. I'm your host, Deanne DeWitt. Today, we are joined by one of Sumner County's great leaders, not only a county commissioner, but also senior vice president at Farmers Bank and member of the board of the Portland Chamber, County Commissioner Mark Harrison.
Good afternoon or good morning. I don't know what time we're actually doing this. But,
it could be 3 a.m. when somebody decides to tune in.
And that is true. When you started that introduction, I actually thought somebody else was about to walk in here, one of the great leaders. I'm like, is somebody coming in? So
I think you eat, sleep, and you meditate on county leadership.
Sleep is a little bit overrated right now at this time of year, but
yeah, especially in the conditions we've gone through recently.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's a tough environment.
It is for a lot of reasons. Yes. Today, the day that this episode is scheduled to release, is the day that petitions are due for the county primary. And so it's a bit of a special and important day. So yes. I'm glad that you are here and we can maybe talk a little bit about, a lot of things related to the county primary.
Sure. It's going to be an exciting time.
Okay. Well, let's start with Portland, where you hail. Like all of Sumner County, growing, changing fast. From your perspective, what are the biggest growing pains that you think Portland is facing right now?
You know, when I graduated high school in Portland, 1987, I mean, we was about probably 4,500 people. Now we are about 3 times plus that amount. And certainly when you grow over the last 40 years, I mean, you're going to meet a lot of challenges. The number one thing I think that we're looking at, like the county, is infrastructure. We had a lot of aging water lines that we're trying to address. And of course, when you have the number of folks that have decided to, and I always think about, people talk about residential growth. I think what's happening is people are voting with their feet. They see the state of Tennessee and the leadership that's been provided at the state level, and they see no income tax, and they want to move to a smaller, rural, less government intrusive community. And they see a place like Portland. I think Portland is a wonderful place. I say this all the time, to work, live, play. I've always said I never wanted to live somewhere where when you had a funeral procession, somebody didn't pull off on the side of the road and pay their respects. Uh-huh. And I think Portland has seen that, and all of Sumner County is seeing that. And so the infrastructure is the number one. Water has certainly been a priority for us, but also sewer and all of the things that go along with that.
Yeah. As you were talking, something came to mind that I didn't necessarily expect you to bring up, but I'm going to bring it up, is that balance with addressing those infrastructure and addressing the demands and the things that are coming to town, the new things. But you have some great history up there,
really
too.
Do.
I know the Temple Theater, it's
gorgeous.
It's phenomenal.
Yes.
It is gorgeous. The Bosendorfer piano, there's not many Bosendorfer pianos in the state of Tennessee.
Well, I can't even pronounce that name. I'm glad you did it. But yes, there's been a lot of public-private partnerships, and I hope that partnerships is something that we talk about as we go on through this podcast, because it takes people working together, and there's been a lot of. It was a decades-long project, and a lot of individual effort put forth to restore. I mean, there's even stories about where the theater seating came from, and
the person who might have spent half of his lifetime reconditioning those seats.
Of course, yes.
Let's give him a shout out.
That's Billy Gaminden.
The Billy Gaminden, one and only.
And of course, Billy's wife was also the economic development director for the city for, I think 40 years.
Outstanding.
And so it takes dedicated people like that have a love for their community. Temple Theater, and of course the revitalization of Main Street and the chamber working together with the city. All of these things come in to focus when you're talking about a community and working together and partnering.
Yeah. I think a big part of this conversation about this podcast episode is going to be talking about Sumner County government. And so you've been on the commission for 3.5-ish years now.
Yes, ma'am.
In 60 seconds, if that's possible, for somebody who's never watched a commission meeting or really doesn't understand the operation of a county commission, what can you explain? What does the commission actually control?
here's the way I see the county commission. We have what I consider, and I've said this many times, 3 primary functions. We set the tax rate, we approve the county budget, and then during the course of the year when things arise, we have to allocate financial resources. We are really the ones that write the checks for the county. That's what we do. Now, yes, there are zoning issues that we will handle from time to time out in the unincorporated areas of the county, but our primary function is to manage the checkbook for the county.
Right. And the biggest portion of that checkbook.
The biggest portion of that is the school system.
Yeah. The next 2, if after schools.
Well, public safety, certainly. Yep. And then, of course, the biggest asset that this county actually has is well over 600 miles of roadway, which is managed by our highway superintendent. By far, we have the best highway superintendent in the entire state of Tennessee, maybe in the Southeast, and that's Toby Ellis.
Yeah.
And he's been on this podcast.
He has. And his resume it defies logic when you think about the job he has.
And listen, a shout out to all of our highway crews, first responders, EMA, tree trimmers, private citizens that were getting out in this last weather event. I think they're calling it Fern. Internet providers, utility linemen, all of these folks working together, again, partnering together to keep Sumner County citizens with the services that they have come to expect.
Yeah, remarkable. And Toby is in at the center of a lot of that.
Yes.
Those are the things that the county controls. What are, if you can frame it from a different perspective, what are the key responsibilities that the commission owes the public? Can you think of it from a resident's perspective? What does the commission need to provide? What kind of balance and decision making? Do you kind of get where I'm going? Do you want me to reframe that question?
I do. I think first and foremost, as a Republican, as a conservative Republican, I believe less government is better. We shouldn't be doing for private citizens what they can do for themselves. I want to keep taxes low.
Right.
But I also recognize that you look at kind of what's going on in Nashville with the NES and, we don't want to trim trees and we don't want to do this, or, okay, well, that sounds good until you have an event.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you realize that, hey, maybe we should have done something that, so I think first of all is less government, being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. Now that does not mean never will we, some catastrophic event could come up to where we might have to look at a tax increase. I'm not advocating for one. I think that should be the absolute last resort. But we realize that sometimes things happen and we've got to do things. But again, I think that ought to be the absolute last resort. But I also realize that citizens expect, when they are participating in services, whether it be the county clerk, the trustee, paving roads, they want to see that stuff done. And that comes from property taxes and sales tax.
And those things, right. They all have.
Yes.
It's not just there's a lot of work and problem solving that goes into figuring out how that budget works.
That's exactly
and that's what drives.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And one more thing I would throw in there is certainly transparency. Being a good steward, don't tell your constituents, I'm going to do something, and then don't do it. Right. I think that we have, we just have a responsibility to be good human beings to one another, but also to make sure that you don't overcommit, but you don't undercommit. So I think it's always a balancing act.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about the commission since 2022. Let's focus on really the outcomes of some of the things that have come before the commission, not the individuals or the different personalities.
No, that's right.
What are some of the issues or some of the things that haven't been as functional as you would like to see? And how does some of that dysfunction really impact the population?
I think to me, the most obvious thing is length of meetings. We have our county commission meetings typically are on the third Monday of every month. Now, in January and February, that's different because you've got Martin Luther King Day in January and you've got President's Day in February. They fall on the third Monday. So we push them back to the fourth Monday. But for folks that don't know it, that don't follow this, I mean, you and I have been intimately involved in this, but it's typically on the third Monday at 7 o'clock. We have gone from 7 o'clock in the evening to 1:30 in the morning on a couple of occasions, and it's hardly ever before 10:30 that we are adjourning. And I think that there are some folks out there that find some kind of virtue in having long, protracted meetings, and really and truly it should not be that way. And a lot of it, I think, comes from, again, I go back to forming relationships with your constitutional officers, your sheriff, your county clerk, your county mayor, and highway, asking questions and being prepared before you get there, and not having to have endless debate. I mean, let's face it, this is not the Constitutional Convention here that we're carrying on. I mean, this is trying
normal
to
daily
pave
business.
roads. Yes, it's paving roads. It's funding schools. It's trying to help the county clerk make sure that she's got enough money to buy copy paper to issue these the titles and the things that you get in her office and those kinds of things. And so I don't think it takes 4 and 5 and 6 hour meetings in order to accomplish the people's business. I'll give you another item. When we're down there, we're keeping lights burning, and we're keeping sheriff's deputies there. Guess who pays that? You pay them through your tax dollars.
Very good point.
Janitorial services, they're having to sit there. I know, I can't tell how many times in the last 3.5 years that John has had to tell them, hey, I'll shut the lights off. John Isbell, our county mayor, I'll shut the lights off. Y'all go on home. Because we're paying those folks overtime. Yeah. And I get it. It's not a lot of money, but it's still taxpayer dollars. Committee meetings going 2.5, 3 hours long, it's just unnecessary.
Right.
And so I think that's a big portion of the dysfunction that I've seen. When I first decided to run, somebody asked me that lives in my district, said, what is something that you would like to see accomplished? And I did not have a laundry list of things. I wasn't running because I was upset at something that had happened. I was running because I believe in public service. I come from a line of that. And I told him, I said, if I could accomplish anything, it would be to help educate the general public on what government actually does. I had a lot of calls when I first started about, well, I'd like to see my road paved. Well, that's a city road. That's a city street. Or that's Highway 109 that I drove down to get here. That's a state road.
Right.
So the city doesn't have anything to do with getting that actually paved. It's not actually their responsibility. Things like that I think would be, if we're trying to pass resolutions saying, hey, TDOT, we want you to come pave this road. Well, we don't have any control over that whatsoever. Yeah. So to pass pointless resolutions just to make yourself appear like you're doing something when you really have no control of it, and I call it driving outside of your lane. And another thing is people don't understand is the state actually regulates what we can and cannot do through the TCA code.
Right.
And so a lot of times we find ourselves outside of that.
Yeah. Well, I think as you were talking, I suspect, there might be some folks that would take some sound bites of what you just said and maybe take it out of context to pretend that you think.
That wouldn't be the first time that's happened.
Yeah, it's bound to happen.
Sure.
But what you're touching on are these things where a county commission has a certain set of responsibilities.
That's right.
And what happens when these rabbit holes and these, elongated conversations or debates or things that just end up not getting the work done because we're stuck on some of these needless debates. A lot of what happens there that you can't follow the path, but what's happening is that people are getting more and more confused.
Sure.
About what needs to happen, what can happen, what the role is. And it really has, we have a lot of issues. We've talked a lot about voter turnout, and voters don't show up when they don't understand.
That's right.
And
That's right.
It would do well to help things become not only easier to understand, but just, more palatable to sit in and listen into a county commission meeting.
Yes. I mean, I think we ought to be doing a lot of things to try to educate voters and try to get them to participate in the process. I mean, there's been a lot of bloodshed in wars to protect the freedoms and provide us with the freedom to be able to go to the polls.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that we would do anything to try to discourage voter participation. I mean, I get it. A lot of times voters will come to decisions that we don't necessarily like. But you know what? That's part of living in a democratic republic is that, we get to do this. We get to go cast our ballot and make our own informed decision. And when people don't participate in the process, then you get what you asked for, so to speak. So
maybe use this opportunity to just, if maybe there's a couple things that, maybe a couple other concrete examples of things that have transpired over the last few years that you wish had gone a different direction. What are some of the most serious things that you think the county needs to understand that has happened over the last couple of years that there's probably a better way?
Sure. Well, I think one of them that I was kind of disappointed in was when we eliminated the entire Human Resources Department. Yeah. With a county our size, and of course, there are arguments on both sides of this issue, but with a county our size, to be able to educate employees on what benefits might be available to them, or even having an outlet if there is a problem with a supervisor or with a constitutional officer, even giving those constitutional officers an outlet to be able to help advise them and educate them on what they not necessarily can and cannot do, but should or should not do when you're talking about employment law. And so,
how many county employees?
Gosh, I think
about 1,000.
It's at the county level, and that doesn't even include the school system.
Right.
So yes, when you're talking about that number of employees, and another thing is that the constitutional officers, they do have control over their own offices, but I know that just having had those conversations with them, they would love to have that sounding board a lot of times as to how can I handle this particular situation, especially when there's a conflict. Conflict management is always something that HR professionals are they're trained. Invaluable. Yeah. Yes, that's what they're trained to do. I'm trained to be in banking. That's kind of my vocation. And
let's point out that constitutional officers, they've been elected.
Sure.
Which some could say that's a popularity contest. That doesn't mean that they have all these skills that make.
That's right.
And in many cases, we've already talked about Toby. You couldn't have a more qualified. But I think of some of the constitutional officers that there's not a. When your name shows up on a ballot, it doesn't give you the resume of all the things that, let's say, you're an assessor of property, John Hirsch. He's a great assessor of property. Right. He's been in that job for a long time, but we didn't vote on him for somebody that has a resume that understands all the statistical analysis and the things that really go into assessing property.
It's one thing, just using Toby again as an example, it's one thing to know how to pave roads. It's another thing to know how to manage people. And it's a completely different skill set at times. And there's very few people that possess all of those qualities to be able to do it. But it is a necessary skill set to acquire pretty quickly, because I mean that's what our job is, dealing with people. Even as an elected official, I represent approximately 8,500 to 9,000 constituents. If you don't have the ability to deal with people, you don't have any business in these roles.
Right. Another piece of the resume that you don't see on a ballot.
That's exactly right.
But you've brought this point up about the HR department, and that is one of the things that really I couldn't believe it. Honestly, I couldn't believe that was a target early on in this last commission to dismantle that, because the prior commission that I served on, we finally found the money in the budget to create that office, which I think Sumner County was long time coming to finally have that function under the umbrella of county services. And we finally made the space for it. And we finally hired somebody who was competent to do that. And now we sit as, I think, maybe in the top 10 counties size-wise.
I think we're the 8th largest county, 7th or 8th, depending on the year and the census and whatnot. But
only one.
Yes, I think we're the only one in the top 10 that does not have an HR department.
Yeah.
And again, I get it. You can't tell, that HR professional cannot tell the constitutional officer what to do, but they can be a great sounding board, a great advisor to be able to help guide them through some potential pitfalls.
Right. I know we could talk about a lot of other details, but let's talk about budget. You're on budget committee.
I'm on the budget committee, yes.
So what do you wish voters understood about what the budget is? What are the biggest locked in costs? When it's funny, I have some friends who just, they're staunch conservatives just like me, but they just assume there's always waste, right?
Yes.
Taxes, we don't need taxes. We shouldn't,
Well, and see, I've heard that argument.
It's an easy argument, right?
Yeah, and I've heard that argument coming out of particularly the state of Florida. That's one place is, look, Florida's getting rid of property taxes. Well, Florida has an asset that we don't have. Well, they actually have two. They have the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. Right. So, or Gulf of America, depending on your persuasion. But they have beaches. They have 5 or I don't know how many, maybe 7 or 8 professional sports teams bringing in revenue. They have the beaches, all the tourism, Disneyland, all of the things. We don't have those assets. I would love to see that. We do have a lot. Of course, Florida is a very conservative state as well. It's shifted in the last 10 or 15 years from purple to more red. I mean, we're very red here, but I don't know how you fund services solely on sales tax unless you jack up the sales tax. And see, like you take a lot of border towns like Portland, Clarksville, and other border towns that are already going into Kentucky to buy their groceries because there's no sales tax on groceries. Well, we're losing that revenue. And again, it's not my money. It's taxpayer dollars. But when you call 911 for an ambulance, how are we supposed to pay for that?
Yeah.
How are they supposed to drive on a paved road in the unincorporated areas of the county? We've talked a lot about volunteer fire departments. Folks want volunteer fire departments funded. I do as well. I've got 2 stations of the 13 in my district. But how does that happen if we do away solely with property taxes? Yeah. I don't know what that funding mechanism is. I don't know what that looks like.
And in our existing county budget.
Yes.
Waste is not a word that comes to mind.
It's not. Yeah. That's something that we heard a lot of when we first took office, all this waste that's out there. And we managed to cut in the first year 1 penny, which I think was about 1 trip to Sonic. Is what everybody saved one time a year. It was basically just for show. Right. And we could have kept that money in debt service.
I was going to say that was a debt service.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is, when you get to the complexities of managing.
And full disclosure, I voted for it. I mean, how do you vote against cutting taxes? You can't do it. But I also recognize that, that's what we're losing. There's a trade-off.
Right. It was a setup.
Of course.
I think they were all hoping you wouldn't vote for it, but that's all right. We have to manage through these things, and a lot of decision making is those compromises where you give on something that you see a bigger picture, but you need to go here to get to the next.
I hear a lot of times that people will get up and pontificate, and they'll say, "Well, I'm here to vote for what my constituents tell me." Well, that is yes and no, because a lot of times we are in a position where we have more information, and the information is available. It's publicly available, except that a lot of people just don't. It's like going to vote. People just don't access it. And so we will have more information, and we will know that, okay, yes, if we vote this way, it's going to affect this down the road. Well, it's our responsibility, I think, to sort of help to educate that person that is calling or emailing and say, hey, listen, I hear what you're saying, but if we do this, if we do X, then Y and Z is going to happen. And when you explain it to them, they're like, oh, I didn't realize that.
Right.
It's more than just a soundbite. It's about kind of helping to guide the average citizen through the decision-making process. I mean, that's why we are elected, is to represent them and make decisions that are in the best interest of our district, of our region, of our neighborhood.
Right. Absolutely. Setting that up is a great segue. I want to ask you I've said at the beginning of this conversation, today is petition deadline if anybody's interested in running. So what would you just say to somebody who's thinking of running? What are some of the things that you really look for, things that you think voters should take seriously about the candidates that are out there?
That is an easy question for me, and I'm glad you asked it. I'm gonna give just a little backstory, and then but it's gonna be real short. I've got a lady that I've worked with very closely for almost 40 years. And I hear this all the time. She's got 2 children. They're in their 30s. And we'll talk about, well, when are they going to have children? When are they not going to have children? And I said, well, I'm not sure I want them to have children. Okay, because it's a tough world. Let's face it. I teach Sunday school. I've read my Bible. I know if you're a Bible believing Christian, it's not going to get any better. Okay, well, then my answer to that is this, and it's the same answer I would give to running for office. If good people stop having children, who's going to have them? And if good people, reasonable people, stop running for office, who's going to do it? That would be my response. Mm-hmm. I don't have to agree with you on every single issue. I wouldn't expect that. I can't imagine if the county commission was full of 24 Mark Harrisons.
Yeah,
I'm sure we wouldn't get along, because I can't. I have a hard time getting along with myself at times. But I do think that surrounding yourself with various ideas, various ways of thinking, I do think it forces you outside of your box and give another perspective. I mean, we have a very diverse county. People in Westmoreland on the Allen County, Kentucky, Sumner County, Tennessee line think differently about things than somebody who's in Hendersonville right next door to Rivergate.
Sure.
It's a completely diverse county. They face geographical challenges. I know folks in Hendersonville and Gallatin well, why are we still out of school during this one? But they don't understand what I call the hills and hollers of up in the northern part of the county. And so you can't just open Beach and close down Bethpage Elementary. So we have that, and that's why we have 24 individual districts. So because to get a variety of perspectives and try to come together, I tell a fellow commissioner of mine, every decision we make is a math problem. How do you get to 13? Because 13 is the majority, and the majority rules in this country, and I'm glad of that.
Yeah,
I'm thankful for it.
But it's important to have people who are prepared to solve problems, to become educated, to share that education with their constituents.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to end on this, Mark. I said at the beginning, you're serving in great capacity, and you really are, I can attest, on behalf of those who are paying attention, you are a great leader in our county commission. We're grateful for you to do that.
I never want to give my hometown, my part of the country, a reason to think that I've done something to embarrass them. It's very important to me to make sure that they know that when they send me, they're committing their trust to me. I do not want that to ever be perceived as being misplaced.
Well, I was going to ask you about maybe a core value that underlies both your work, your family, your contributions to your church, to your chamber, and to the county commission. Is there any final words of wisdom that maybe as folks are thinking about?
I don't know if it's words of wisdom, but certainly your word matters. I mean, it's, at the end of the day, when I'm laying out in front of everybody, all I've got left is my word. That's all I've got. And I hope that I never devolve to the point that somebody say, well, that guy just blatantly lied to me. That would just kill me. I mean, I may tell you something that you don't want to hear, and you and I may have a different perspective on something. But if I tell you something, I want you to know that I'm telling you from the perspective of that's exactly how I believe it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do that. I'm going to follow through with that. Now, you may persuade me and change my mind, but at the end of the day, like I said, my word's all I've got.
Well, I'm going to wrap that up with integrity. So thank you for serving with integrity. Thank you for
thank you. I
being
appreciate
here
it.
and sharing your time. And we'll get back to another conversation, I think, someday. So
That'll be great.
thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Until next time.